What's going on there, YouTube? So, if you haven't seen it yet, check out my driving video of the Sand Scorcher. That thing is a beast. I was completely not prepared for how fast it actually was going to be. And, having just jumps and just donuts and spinning the tires non-stop. This thing was a blast to drive. So, that being said, I was pretty rough on it. If you've seen that video, you saw I kind of had to do a manky mount for my steering servo. This is an aftermarket chassis, so it wasn't really, there wasn't anywhere to put it. So, hoping we could address that in this video. First off, though, we got to rebuild the rear shocks. Now, I got this from my friend Richard Cook, and he is an experienced builder like myself, and I trust that he put it together properly. That's why I purchased it from him. And he did away with the torsion bar system that was on this and put springs in the shocks. And the front held up good, but the rear wore out pretty quick. So I've already pulled the rear shocks off, as you can tell by the ridiculous amount of camber. It feels good like sitting on the bench and pushing it up and down. The shocks work, but actually driving it, they just stayed bottomed out until you got off the ground, and they would, you know, hang, and it would recoil a little bit, but they just didn't have the the cushion that it needed to drive it like I was driving it. It looks cool with it all cambered out like that, but I need a little bit stiffer setup in the rear. So, that being said, we're going to take the rear shocks apart. I had some requests to see how to do that, or see how I do that. And I've never been in these shocks. I've never had a Sand Scorcher before, so I'm not familiar. They're a little bit different setup than what I'm typically used to. So it's going to be learning along the way. I'm hoping I can find a way to make them stiffer. I don't know if that's going to be possible just yet, but we need to take them apart and see what's going on inside. Alright, so you can see there's a fair amount of oil leakage. You can tell by the oil all over the outside of it. I've got this one cleaned off. These are a little bit different type of assembly. The bottom end comes off with a set screw, which are nice and Loctited. That's why I said I knew I could trust my buddy Richard Cook to put it together right, because he's an old school Tamiya guy just like me. So now the bodies are solid and the bottom screws out, which is a terrible design because gravity and your fluid's gonna run out. So let me find something, see if we can crank this thing off. It has a hex on it, but I don't have a wrench or a driver that size. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice again. Still haven't gotten over all this sickness I had. Alright, so we've got a lot of spacers. He had it spaced out so it would sit lower, I bet. And make sure y'all can even see that. We've got a nice coil spring inside and some fluid. Not much left anymore. I'm going to lay that over here on the shirt so it doesn't leak all over my workshop. So we have a threaded end, and then we have one spacer, a rubber bushing, another spacer, and then the actual valve basically. And it's got a slot in it, and that's what allows the fluid to go on either side of it and controls your recoil rate and your spring rate basically, and your dampening. So what I think I need to do, I think I need to swap that bottom spacer for a couple more rubber O-rings. See if we can't seal this thing up a little bit better. Alright guys, so I've got some O-rings here. I pulled, this is the spring that was in the shock that he put in there, and it is very stiff. I pulled apart some RC 4-wheel drive scale shocks here, and they are not nearly that stiff. And I even got my Tamiya Grand Hauler shocks, and it's a smaller diameter spring, and it's about the same. So it's not even worth, because it'll get in there. It's not big enough around diameter wise, and it'll get in there and just kind of fold over on itself and jam up the shock. So no luck there. So I guess I'm just going to rebuild it. I'm going to hope that the O-ring holds, and we'll just use the same spring and give it a go. See if it doesn't improve our situation any. Excuse me. So here's what I'm going to do. Make sure you can see what's going on down here. I'm going to take the bottom off. I'm going to take the O-ring off, or this plastic ring, and I'm going to put on this black rubber O-ring and another red O-ring. It's a little bit larger diameter. That may not work actually. I think I need to do it the other way around. So I'm going to keep everything spaced out basically the same. I'm going to do the red, and then the black. And then we'll put this back on like so. So I've got a big mess of stuff in there, but back in the day I had the Team Associated, what was it? RC10 T2. That's what it was. And that was my first real hobby grade kit. I mean, I had some Tamiya on-road stuff before, but that was... it had aluminum shocks, and it had the seal on the bottom was a rubber O-ring, a plastic ring, and another rubber O-ring, and they leaked like crazy. So I'm familiar with this type of setup, and I'm hoping that I can improve it some. So I'm going to throw this spring back in, and I've got some old Axial 30 weight shock oil. It's the only shock oil I have anymore since everything I use is internal spring RC four-wheel drive stuff. Oh, way too much. All the RC four-wheel drive ones are just spring only, maybe a little grease, no fluid. I put way too much in there. It's alright, that's why I got this shirt out. I was prepared. I guess I probably could have consulted the instruction manual for this to see what they recommend anyway, but I got a feeling it's still too much. Alright. Yeah, I put more than twice as much in there as I needed. We're going to roll with it though. Start tightening it. I always hated messing with shocks when I was a kid. I had Tamiya TAO2 on-road car, and I had that RC10 T2 truck. And those Tamiya shocks are all plastic and the standard coil spring. They never ever leaked. And I had that other one, and it leaked like a chimney. It leaked like a faucet or whatever. Alright, so that's still not screwed down all the way. Let's see if we can't crank on it. Can't tell if that piece is metal or plastic. Let's see if we have too much fluid. Yep, it won't even move. Such a mess. I may swap the fluid for grease then, since it's not cooperating. We're just going to lay it here and plunge it till it all leaks out. Not all of it, but enough to allow it to move. It's been so long since I've rebuilt oil-filled shocks. Alright, that's feeling stiffer than it was. I'm going to crank this all back down now. I'm hoping those O-rings do the trick and keep it from leaking so dang much, but we won't know until... Oh yeah, there we go. Let's get it all cleaned off and see if it's already all leaked out. Yeah, I would have liked to have had the setup on here with the torsion bars just to see how it performed, but all that stuff was taken off when I got it, so alright. It's a little bit stiffer than the unrebuilt one, so I'm going to go ahead and do the other one real quick, and then we'll put it back on and see what it feels like. Alright guys, so it looks like it's lifted it a little bit, but it's really hard to tell without it running. And there's not much travel in it. Set, and yeah, I've got maybe half an inch of flex in the rear. And, you know, it's not about the flex, but it needs a little bit of up travel. I think, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to do with those. I may need to go back to torsion bars in the rear and take those springs out of the shocks. I may have to get on eBay and see if I can find those parts. Give that a shot. But we'll run it like this first and see if it holds up or it all leaks out again. Because it is a little bit more firm. But we won't know until we drive it and see if there's anything left in it when we're done. The front's holding up well. It doesn't have nearly the weight. The front was perfect when I was driving it. It ate the bumps up, landed the jumps, recoiled, and didn't hop, didn't bounce real bad. It stayed one bounce and go. It was ready to go. The thing had so much torque, the front probably wasn't having a whole lot of force applied to it towards the ground. So anyway, we'll see how that does. I'm going to go ahead and start looking through my bins of junk for servo mounts and see if I can't come up with something creative to mount that servo where it is. I don't want to put it where the kit says off to the side. It just doesn't work with this aftermarket chassis and that battery where it is. So I'm going to dig around in the bins. If not, I may end up making something. Alright, so I'll come up with a plan. I'm going to drill 2 holes in the frame. And I'm going to use this 3/16 steel fuel line, brake line, sorry, not fuel line. And I'm going to cut it into small pieces. That way I can bolt straight through from the bottom up here. I'm going to use some washers and a lock nut and see how that does. Hopefully it'll be strong enough. I've got some bolts here that are long enough to do it. Just got to mark my rod here and cut 2 little pieces. With this kind of stuff, I'm going to use this pipe cutter. It gives me a nice clean edge. I don't have to throw sparks with the Dremel or anything. This brake line cuts pretty easily. I've used it for roll bars and stuff. So let's get started. Alright guys, so it seemed to work pretty well. It is extreme. I mean, I'm all the strength in my hand, and I have pretty strong hands, and it's not giving forward or back at all. I left the servo tape on there because it was holding, and just add a layer of cushion between the frame and the servo. It's not the prettiest thing, but I mean, heck, it works. So excited to take it out and test it again here soon, hopefully. See how it holds up. I need to invest in some new ramps. Started making ramps out of some spare MDF and patio blocks. So yeah, the rear seems a little bit stiffer. Won't know till we drive it. I'm still trying to figure out some more stuff to do to the exterior. I started trying to braze a like windshield louvers, and something's wrong with the valve on my torch, so I couldn't get anything done with that. I do need to do something, at least. I'm not as worried about the suspension. I think that looks okay because it gets dirty enough and oil from the shocks and all that. But I need to do something about these front and rear tubes because they are very shiny. I'm not sure yet how I want to handle that. I thought about doing them with the rust paint, but I don't know. I'm hesitant to use that more because there's already so much with the wheels and the body. So any ideas out there, comment below. Let me know what you think I should do with those aluminum bumpers. And yeah, as always, follow along on Instagram. It's RC Everyday. And I appreciate you guys watching. And I'll see you in the next video.